guys, I'm Kara. For today's video, we're going to talk about how I raise these discus babies. Before I get started, I want to give a quick disclaimer. The methods and ways that I raise these guys that I'm going to discuss in this video, I just want to say it's not necessarily, there's not one way to do it right. There's a lot of different ways you can raise discus babies, so what worked for me might not work for another person, so just keep that in mind while I discuss how I did this. I'd also like to give a quick thank you to the guy who actually gave us these discus. Hopefully he's watching. He unfortunately had to give up his discus and he brought us a bunch of beautiful ones. The ones that are the breeding pair, the mommy and daddy of these babies, we still have them, and all the other discus found great homes, but I just wanted to say thank you to you. You know who you are. They are wonderful, we love them, and they have a permanent home here with us. So I think it was about 2 months ago, the parents laid eggs for the first time, and they laid eggs in this big tank I have behind me here, and at the time we had probably around 6 other discus in there with them, like big ones. They were doing a really good job of guarding them, but there was no way those babies were going to be raised in a tank like this with other discus that would eat them. So I decided I was going to try and raise the eggs without the parents, because I really didn't have time to set up a tank, move everything, right then and there. So I took the eggs, I put them in, I think, a 10-gallon with an air stone blowing over them and some ethylene glue to keep fungus off of them. I did manage to hatch them, but the problem I had was they weren't eating without the parents. With discus, when they're born and they become free swimming, they actually eat the slime coat off the parents, and that's what they use as their first foods for like the first 2 to 3 weeks. And I wasn't able to mimic that. They weren't eating live brine or spirulina. They weren't taking anything I was giving them. So the first batch unfortunately failed. Now with discus, they actually lay eggs for a large period of time. They will lay once a week for about 15 weeks. I believe they do this twice a year. So I knew I'd get another chance. So I waited for the next batch the following week. So I actually tried a different method of incubation, so to speak, for the eggs. I wanted to give one more round, or one more try of artificially raising these babies. So this time, to hopefully get stronger babies, better success rate, I made what's called an egg tumbler. Most people, if you know what an egg tumbler is, you're probably thinking, well, why would I tumble discus eggs? Normally, egg tumblers are used for bigger eggs, like with African cichlids or something like that. Well, you can actually tumble any eggs as long as you're careful with getting them off the surface they were laid on. So with the help of a good friend, you know who you are, I made an egg tumbler, and I carefully used my finger to scrape the eggs off the leaf they were laid on, and I put them into the egg tumbler. In about 72 hours they were hatched, and then I think it was another 3 days they were free swimming. Once again, the fry did not want to eat for me. I tried different methods. I had been speaking to discus breeders online about how they were doing it, and the babies still weren't eating for me. And at this point I had them floating in a little cup in the main tank with the parents. I had actually set up a 40-gallon breeder in the back so that I could move the parents and hopefully for the third batch let them do it themselves. So I had them floating in a little cup with the parents. I was hoping maybe if I had them in a little confined cup, that they would not be able to not find the food. It would be right there in front of them, but they still weren't going for it. So I had them floating in this cup, and I noticed the parents were actually staring at their babies all day, like they were looking at them. And I thought maybe they were looking at them because they thought that they were food. Maybe they thought they were a type of bug that they could eat. And I was really worried that the parents were going to fixate on them, all day and then not lay another batch for me. So what I did was I actually let the babies go in the tank, expecting them to be eaten, and then they lay another batch in another week. That's not at all what happened. What happened was the parents actually recognized that these were their babies, which really blows my mind because they hadn't seen their babies in a full week. It still blows my mind to this day that they were able to see that those were their children and that they had the parental instincts to take care of them. So when I released them into the tank, they immediately went into parenting mode, and the babies went straight for their mom and dad, and they started eating off the side of their bodies. So I think I mentioned it earlier, if I didn't. Discus produce a slime coat, the babies eat it, that's what they live off of for the first 2 weeks. So, babies immediately went for the parents, and they fed off this slime coat for, I think I kept them with the parents about 2 to 3 weeks, maybe it was 2.5. But I actually took a video of them every single day. I will show some of those videos here. They grew really, really fast. I couldn't believe how fast they grew. I remember the first day they were like little specks, and then by day 3 they were grains of rice, and then by day 7 they were pea-sized. It was crazy how fast that they were growing. So by week 2 or week 3, I can't remember exactly which, I was ready to take the babies away. By this point we had been introducing live brine shrimp, frozen foods, and some flake, and the babies were taking it, so they were starting to stray away from the parents and eat other foods. So I was ready to take them away, so I set up a little 10-gallon and I moved them into there, and they stayed in there a week or 2, I think it was just 1 week, and they doubled in size in that 10-gallon, and I realized that was not going to last very long. So at that point, I moved them into this 90-gallon here that I have behind me. I changed the filtration to sponge filters instead of the canister that we had running in it, because the babies would have got sucked into the overflow. So I blocked those off, changed it for sponge filters, and now they are growing up here in this 90-gallon. So at this point, I believe these babies are a month and a half old, maybe almost 2 months now. They're doing really well. Like I said, they eat literally everything. Some of you guys maybe have been keeping up with the updates on them, but they will be ready for sale when they reach the size of this circle, which is about 1.5 to 2 inch in diameter. But I do have another batch on the way, and that's another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about. So after these guys were split from their parents, the parents didn't lay eggs for, I think it was about 2 weeks. And then they finally laid another batch, and I decided I wasn't going to bother taking away the eggs at this point because the parents had a whole tank to themselves. I was just going to let them do what discus parents do. So I'll let them have at it. I was off for 2 days. I came back. Babies were gone. I did notice my pH dropped for some reason. I'm not sure what caused it. I think that might have killed off the babies. I'm not really sure. Got that fixed. I used alkaline buffer to fix it, and they laid another batch within a week, and then those babies disappeared, and I actually saw the parents eat them this time. I'm not sure why they were eating them. They were hatched. Can't really explain that. So I have another batch of eggs in that egg tumbler that I spoke about previously. So I'm going to do what I did the first time with the first batch, is I'm going to tumble the eggs, I'm going to hatch them myself, get them to free swimming, and then give them back to the parents. I guess for some reason these guys are having trouble getting them to free swimming. I'm not sure why, so I figured I'm going to help them out. They've actually been staring at the egg tumbler literally all day today. Their eggs are just about to hatch, so I think they know that those are their babies, so when they're free swimming, I'm going to give them back, and hopefully they do the same thing that they did with this batch, and they just take care of them. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the methods I used won't necessarily work for somebody else. This is actually a pretty unconventional way of raising them. Normally people will just leave the parents with the babies and the parents do all the work. But for some reason, my pair is having trouble getting them up to free swimming, but once they're to free swimming, they raise them. So for whatever reason that is, that's just how my pair is. It's going to be different for everybody. Some discus parents might never ever take care of their babies, so keep that in mind. It's different every time. So that about covers how I raise discus babies. I hope you all enjoyed this, maybe learned something. Let me know what you think. Have you ever raised discus babies before, or really any type of fish? I'd like to hear. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Please make sure you subscribe, like our Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and I'll see you next time. Bye.